Hi, this is Mary again. This is Dreamy Goat Design Studio's video on mordanting, which is the second step in natural dyeing. The first was scouring. That's where we cleaned our fibers. They are still damp, and so now we're ready to mordant them. Mordanting is a necessary middle step. If you don't mordant, you can still dye, but your colors won't be really fast, water fast or light fast. So to ensure that your colors stay bright for years to come, we need to basically attach a metallic salt to our fibers, which in turn the dye grabs a hold of. So modere, and I'm probably mispronouncing it, but modere in Latin means to bite. And that's exactly what potassium aluminum sulfate does when we use it as a mordant. There are other mordants out there, metallic salts out there, but they are, just don't even bother with them. Tin, copper, chrome. Copper and chrome are very toxic. Chrome is actually poisonous. So leave those off your list. The only reason I mention them is that if you have older dye books, you will see them mentioned as mordants. We can get a full range of colors with just potassium aluminum sulfate. The other thing we add is not a mordant as such, but it assists in keeping fibers soft and colors bright, particularly wool, and that's tartaric acid. Okay, so we're going to use that too. So let's begin the process. Now I have heated the water, and that's all it is water. These two pots I've already mordanted, and if you look into them, you can see, and they were mordanted earlier today, so the water's warm but not hot. You can see that there's 4 bags or 1 pound of fiber. Similarly, another 4 bags, 1 pound of fiber. We're going to do exactly the same with this one. So, first thing we do is I've warmed up the water. I'm going to turn this kettle on to get this water boiling. And then I'm going to measure out my potassium aluminum sulfate, also I just call alum, and the tartaric acid, or what I call TTA, which is just my abbreviation. It doesn't mean anything to the world. So the first thing I do is I have already figured out my weight of goods, in other words, how much fiber I'm putting in my pot. Remember, I keep voluminous notes, and that's because I dye a lot of things at the same time and I just cannot remember it otherwise. So I look and I see that at 15%, I'm going to weigh this out at 71 grams. I should say that if you have my handbook, you will see everywhere in there that I talk about 20% weight of goods, or 20% alum, and I have kind of cut that back to 15%. Kathy Hattori of Botanical Gardens says 20 is fine, but 15 is fine too. So to save on alum, I use less. Now I said 71 grams, and here is 71 grams. And if you're wondering what that little piece of paper is doing in there, well, what it is, I'm thinking is they had a huge bag, they being Sierra Chemical of Sacramento. They had a huge bag of alum, and when they opened it up, they ripped some of the bag, and so here we have paper shreds. So here we go. Watch this. This is the alum. I'm going to pour boiling water in, and I'm going to try not to inhale the steam. I'm going to stir it. Now sometimes it completely dissolves immediately. No undissolved granules in the bottom. And sometimes it doesn't. And I can see that it does still have some of the alum undissolved down there. So I'm going to go ahead and pour everything in that is not, or that's okay, you know, that's ready to go. But you can see there's quite a bit left. So I will just add, and I like to have it boiling because it seems to really respond to boiling water, but not to just warm water. So I will add a little bit more, dissolve this baby, stir it up, keep stirring. If you don't, then what happens is that those undissolved granules will simply sit on the bottom of your pot and they will be worthless. So there we go. It's done. Bingo. Oh, and by the way, when I do several things at the same time, I actually I label everything. White granules, you can't tell one from the other, so label if you need to. Now I've already measured out the tartaric acid. It is 28 grams, and I am working in grams, yes, but you could also work in ounces. I'm doing the same thing with the tartaric. The alum, if you're in California, I get the alum from Sierra Chemical out of Sacramento, and I get the tartaric acid from Lodi Wine Laboratories. If you're not in California, you might need to look around, but these are two good sources for me. Okay, this was cooperative. This melted. So here we go. And there it is. Perfectly clear water. Next step, I get out my damp, clean fibers. Now the only reason why it's been in here is because I took it out of the cooler early this morning and I didn't want it to dry out. I wanted it to stay kind of damp. So here is 4 ounces of targi. Now when I put them in, this is unspun fiber, by the way. This is what ultimately a hand spinner will buy to spin. It's very fragile in the sense that it will be easy to abrade, easy to just kind of wear out. So I put it in the bags. I'm a great believer in these bags particularly for unspun fiber. Notice I'm not smushing them down, I'm just letting them sink lightly. You want to treat these babies with care. And notice another thing. I have a string on the little loop here. I do that, all of these have string. I do that because if I'm washing a whole bunch of fibers at the same time, these got washed at the same time these got washed, at the same time as those got washed, I want to remember what's what. So these have string on them. I think one of these has no string. The other one has string with a knot. That's my little code if I'm dyeing a lot of stuff in the washing machine, in my top loading washing machine. So I just gently let them sink down. The only thing I ever do is push down, and gently at that. This has to do with pizzas. A dowel will work just as well. I don't stir ever. I don't agitate ever. I take the temperature of the water, which by the way has been warming, but not too hot, because I don't want too much of a difference between the pot of water and the temperature of the fiber itself. And it is, it's a little warm. It's a little warm actually. It's 160 right now. I want it to be at about 185 before I start timing it. So this actually is going to warm up a little faster than I want. I like to take 30 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour to bring it up to temperature, and then I hold it at temperature. So I'm committed for 2 hours, and I'm putting my timer on, and every 10-15 minutes I check. Okay? So when it has simmered at no more than 200 for an hour, I turn it off and I let it stay in the pot overnight. And the next day, I'm technically ready to dye. But I don't. I put it back in a bag, seal that bag up, I do label it, and I put it in a cooler. Or if I'm not going to be dyeing for a while, I actually freeze it and then defrost it when I go to dye. But this is it. You are now in the process of mordanting. One last thing though before we go. The question is, after tomorrow morning, when you take your fibers out and you are either going to dye with them or you're going to let them cure in the mordant for a while, which I recommend, what the heck do you do with the leftover mordant bath? Well, you can pour it down your kitchen sink. You can pour it on the ground outside. I'm not sure I would recommend pouring it in your flower bed, or you can do something else. You can, if you're going to mordant something very soon, like that day or the day after, you can use it again. with a little bit of a qualification. Probably, now it's the percentage varies from what I read, but I understand that up to 50% of the mordant, the tartaric and the alum, has not bonded with the fiber. It's still floating around in the water, which means it's still good. So if you go ahead and use it a second time, you do have to do some tweaking of your weight of good percentages, but figure up to 50% is still usable. You can then figure out what you need for your new batch of fiber and determine the difference, okay? And at that point, you can use it a second time, which is great because you save on the metallic salts and you save on water, which is so important in California. Don't do it a third time, however, because at that point, the chemicals are beginning to degrade. They do precipitate out, which means they will not bond to anything. And at that point, you really do need to get rid of your mordant bath. So I think we're good to go. I'm going to hang out here for a couple of hours and enjoy the beautiful up and coming spring weather, even though there are bugs everywhere in the air. And the next video you will see will be where we will be dyeing a particular dye stuff. Okay? Thank you much. See you later.